Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Loadout. It's Tuesday, and we're talking fighting games. I'm your host, Efren Salinas, and with me, as always, is Donka of the most highest analytical mind. And we're going to be talking today, of course, about all things fighting games. But first, we're very excited because our guest for today is the freshly signed by Red Bull, Geef Red Bull Cyclone. Here, let's kill this audio here for a second. Master of all things Zangief, Snake Eyez. Daryl Lewis, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
How's it going, man? Well, how are you doing? I mean, you're the one that just got signed by one of the most prestigious potentially sponsors in the FGC.
Hey, I'm over here doing great, man. I couldn't ask for anything better.
Let's get right into it, man, because I feel like I have the impression that Red Bull has been eyeing you for a very long time. I was teasing you before the show that at the South by Southwest Fighters Invitational, you were drinking a lot of Red Bull on camera. Right. How long has this been in the works? And to walk us through the process of finally getting signed. I mean, for a very long time, people would say, this guy is like one of those top talents of the people who haven't been signed yet, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, since I feel like sometimes slumpy when I'm at tournaments due to the fact that you have to wait and play and then wait and play. I always figured I should probably drink a energy drink. And then I started, I chose Red Bull. And although I always had certain connections with Red Bull, during that time at South by Southwest, I wanted to do a little bit of product representation. So I figured, I'd drink a couple. And that's pretty much how
it sounds like you knew exactly what you were doing.
Right. Yeah, but before that, I always came over here and, I came to the Red Bull Esports Studio, checked it out. They showed me around the place. Had me stream here once. I actually live pretty nearby. Probably I would say less than 15 miles away. And yeah, it's always been a thing I've been working on. I can't say too much about that because I don't want to release too much information, but I've been talking to Red Bull since I would say after Absolute Battle, which happened in Dallas last year. So that was a little after October of last year.
Are you trying to play to the crowd here? Because of course we're based out of Texas and we're big fans of the Absolute Battle guys, and
Right.
we're looking forward to that.
No, actually, this literally happened directly after Absolute Battle.
Wow.
During that crazy grind fest with Ricky Ortiz in grand finals.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of the time it takes to get these things going, a lot of people, like I said, have been like, finally, this is one of those guys that why hasn't he been sponsored yet, right?
Right.
What do you say to guys like that feel that way?
You know what? You just got to keep at it, man. I mean, of course, you have to be good, right? You have to be good. You have to just grind at it. You have to be liked by the people. You can't just be some guy, right? I don't want to give any specific words on that, but you can't just, you have to be likable. And I feel like it's been a long road for me. I've waited. I've been offered a good amount of opportunities, and I just, shot for one and I got lucky.
I mean, that's not a bad position to be in, right? There's worse problems to have than having more than one sponsor after you.
Right.
I don't anticipate you'll tell us the other ones that you turned down, but when it comes to sponsorships, I mean, there are sponsorships and then there are sponsorships, right? And Red Bull has done such a good job in other fringe sports, non-traditional sports, other esports, but not as much in the fighting game community. How do you feel being really one of the big names, at least in America, to be sponsored by Red Bull?
Well, I feel like the progress that the FGC has made from, I would say, 2012 all the way to 2015 is so noticeable. Like for me, a person who's well in depth with the FGC, it's easy to see everything getting so much bigger. So when things like that happen in such a community that starts off small and gets bigger, other people are able to see it, and what they do is they start having people come in and check it out and try to view the positivity and the production value of certain tournaments that go on.
Hmm.
And FGC is definitely here. Like
That's
I
right.
would have to say FGC is equivalent. Actually, it's a little. I wouldn't say it's equivalent to shooters or like MOBA games or anything like that, but it's definitely getting there. Like you have the Capcom Cup, half a mil. You got Evo. Like the amount of people viewing these tournaments is just so large. So with all that happening, of course, a pretty big company, would find interest in us, and they just want to get the either the best or one of the best people to represent their company,
That's
and
right.
they found him.
Now, Daryl, we're going to talk about the Capcom Pro Tier later,
Okay.
but first, since you mentioned shooters, I have it on good authority that you started off as a competitive Halo player.
Oh wow,
Let's talk a
yes.
little bit about your career. How did you go from Halo to HD Remix to being signed by Red Bull? I'd like to hear the story of Snake Eyes.
You know what? This is always an interesting thing to say to people because they're like, "What?" So I started off in shooters because shooters are basically easy to pick up. Um, there's not there's on the casual level, it's pretty easy to play. I would say like most people aren't too good when you're playing casually, but as I started to like get better and notice that I was actually very good at like just knowing a lot of things on what other people wanted to do and just like predicting and being very competitive. Um, so there was a lot of team based matches going on when I used to play. Like I used to be me, one of my friends from online, and then another friend from the area where I stay at, and I kind of felt like I was carrying everyone on the team. It just wasn't a very good feeling. Like if you were getting all of the kills and everyone else just like had mostly deaths and no kills. So I was like, you know what? I kind of want to try a game where you can just do everything by yourself. Like like
Well, you don't have to be depending on everybody else. Like, hey, I'm doing all the work here. Might as well do it for me and not have to worry about other
right,
people's kill death ratios.
right, exactly. Even though I know like a lot of teams have really hard time finding other teammates and things like that, but I just wanted to try it out for myself, just you know, me by myself. So I figured I'd go to Street Fighter 2, and when I started playing that, I was like, I really like this game. It was a game that I played in the past, so it wasn't just like I just picked out a random fighting game out of nowhere, right? This was actually a game I've played before, like in my childhood. So and I always knew there was a competitive scene for it, and I knew that it was the most basic of the Street Fighter games, and that if I started off with that game, I would probably be able to play any other Street Fighter game because that game levels up your fundamentals. So when I started off on that game, when I chose it, I just looked up pro players from that game, and uh, my first character that I started off with was actually Ken, not Zangief. I know that sounds like extremely surprising, but as I started playing, I figured I'd try out like a new character instead of just going with the norm because pretty much everyone plays Shoto characters. Like Shotos are the face of fighting games when you first play those games, and I chose Geef, and that character is like he's me. Like when I play that character, I enjoy doing everything with him. He's so fun. Even when I didn't play on a competitive level, I can see that he kind of frustrated other players, and that I would have a sort of like mental advantage playing with him. And
So,
yeah, that's basically how
well,
I made that transition.
you say that Zangief was me, right? What were those traits? You mentioned frustration, but you know, waiting, mind games, or what is it about you that translated so well to that character design?
Well, in Halo, I was never afraid to camp it out. Like a lot of the times, I just sit in one spot, kind of when I didn't really feel like running around certain areas, and I just wait. And I didn't have any problem with it. Like I didn't get antsy. I didn't feel like it was time to like move. I always just stayed there and like kind of sniped people a lot of the time. So I felt like that was a trait that would transition well into fighting games. Um, I feel like that trait, specific trait, transitions over to being able to be patient. Even when you don't have the life lead in Street Fighter, um, it's okay to wait. A lot of people feel like once they're in a life deficit, they have to go in, and of course the clock plays against that. But it's okay to wait. So um, that's definitely a good trait from Halo, which is the game I used to play back then,
Yeah,
to carry over from.
but I gotta ask you. So let's fast forward a little bit. This is now in 2010. You're
Okay.
playing HD Remix at Evo.
hmm
How long had you been playing that game? How long had you been training in that game from the competitive mindset? I mean, everybody played it in the arcades back as a kid on Super Nintendo, but taking
Yeah.
it seriously is a different ball game, of course. How
Mhm.
long were you in that training mindset and training for Evo before you ended up winning that tournament? Can you tell us that story?
I actually started playing HD Remix late 2009 because it came out late 2009. So I had roughly a year to train in it, or a little less than a year because I didn't play it all the time. So what I basically did was I was careful of the way I picked up the game. Like I told myself, I'm not going to pick up this game to play casually. I'm going to pick up this game to play professionally. So I have to watch out how I teach myself the mechanics and how I come into this game. So what I basically did was, and this goes into depth, like I went to training mode. HD Remix has a training mode where you can view characters' hurt boxes and hit boxes. And what I basically did was I found out what normal of Zangief's beat whatever normal of the other characters, whatever normal they throw out. I figured out how to counter that exact normal with Zangief. So it was a really long. There's only I think there's only like 13 or so characters in that game. Maybe less. I don't know off the top of my head how many characters there are in that game, but there's definitely not 44 characters in that game like there is Street Fighter 4. But yeah, so I figured out what normal countered theirs. Um, I even like had the other character jump in the air and figured out what normal beats that. I like made sure I knew the answer to everything. Like that's the first thing you would want to know when you're playing when you transition over into a new game if you want to be a good player. Like you have to know your options, especially if you're playing with a limited character. You have to know like pretty much everything. So the next thing was since that game has an extremely good netcode, meaning the source that they use to determine how good the online play is.
Mm-hmm.
um, you're able to learn things and play at the highest level possible really quickly. So the fact that I only had, I would say, like 7 months to train, for me, it isn't that surprising because in that game, it's really easy to learn to learn things.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I did was I kept grinding, playing with Zangief, and some matchups are just so tough in that game that you just have to like, you know, put your mindset in this. You have to put your mind in this crazy like mindset to be able to play some of these matches because, 9-1 matchups and 8-2s are not fun. So I didn't really have when I started playing that game. It's very ideal to have a backup character just in case you run into bad matchups, just to make it easier on yourself because a lot of the times you're going to run into that one character where it's just too hard to beat this character with the character you're playing. And it's always good to have a backup, but I didn't have any backup in that character or sorry, in that game. So I just like grinded it all the way through from the brackets all the way into grand finals and winners. Only playing that game 7 months while everyone else has been playing for it. Well, that's Street Fighter 2. So basically, that game's been out since early 1990s. So these guys have been playing that game for a pretty long time. And I don't know how I did it, but all that hard work paid off at Evo.
Well, that's very impressive. Let's fast forward to Street Fighter 4. You
Okay.
mentioned you kind of were Zangief. I think that's interesting because a lot of people would kind of maybe believe that some of the nerfs that he received in 1.04 were targeted at you. So how do you feel about that?
You know what? I honestly feel like those nerfs were targeted directly at me. There's absolutely no reason for him to be nerfed other than what I did with Zangief. Statistically, like just looking at this statistically, it was definitely because of me. Um, when I used to play against people at arcades, Wednesday night fights, majors, like anywhere, they would complain so much about Zangief's light punch green hand. Like this thing was the bane of their existence. And like right after that um, period of time, I just kind of felt like Zangief was going to get nerfed. Like I knew it right before they nerfed him, and then the nerf came, and they nerfed exactly what it was. And I'm just like, I was, I really liked that version of Zangief. He was flawless. Like I think if I had that version of Zangief, I would have won Evo. Like
Oh yeah.
like it would have been so easy. And that's not to say because he was broken with that green hand, but it's just that I had an answer to more things than I do now. So
So then, what have you done exactly? I know Light Punch Green Hand was nerfed. It's a little less plus or a little less more minus, I guess, and it goes less far. So
Yeah.
how have you combated the loss of Oki and kind of the post Green Hand situation since the patch?
so basically that green hand was so devastating to people that they still think that the green hand is still like that for some reason. I don't know why. Um, but now, like, since they think that the green hand is still like that, I can kind of abuse the newer green hand. I can like hit them with a really far, say, like standing short, and then I'll do green hand and it'll miss. And because it missed, I can go right into either Ultra One, or SPD, which are SPD is 2 frames, Ultra One is 1 frame. So if they stick out a limb at the same time I SPD, or just 1 frame before I SPD, they'll still get grabbed. And so that's sadly his mix up now, which is uh, just very subjective to the way they play. It's not a very solid thing because it's not safe at all. And they can jump. They have like, they can reversal. If they know about it, it doesn't work. But if they don't know about it, then it works. So it's really I don't like it, but you know, in the heat of the moment in battle, when there's like tons of people behind you and there's all this pressure and knowing that they're going to fight me, which is uh, very intimidating to certain people because I play Zangief. That's what allows his new game plan to work.
Very interesting. One thing that's typical of fighting games is oftentimes like the Japanese players will dominate or they'll be the best with a specific character. In your case, you're probably considered the number one Zangief. With that being said, do you still watch Japanese Zangiefs? And if so, which ones and what do you look out for?
I like, okay, so there's three Zangiefs in Japan. There's the best, which is probably Hagijin right now. Now this is for now. This wasn't before. So now Hagijin is the best Zangief. I would say I want to say Cantona is the second best, and then there's Itabashi, who actually travels all the time, and also he has the most tech out of like even me. He has more tech than me actually, but he just doesn't know how to apply those things very well. So when I watch Zangiefs, I go straight to Itabashi because I already know what all of the other Zangiefs are doing. Like what they're basically doing is just playing solidly. But Itabashi, he always has something very interesting for me to see when I watch his matches on YouTube. I don't really like watch live events from Japan because they're never really advertised, and you just never know about them. It seems like they're always like kept under like under the carpet kind of, so that they won't really reveal like any secrets or anything. But Itabashi has some really interesting tech, so he's the Zangief that I watch the most. Yeah.
You really think that that they hide those or obscure their streams so that they won't reveal their tech?
I think it's the fact that maybe they lack certain technology and they don't just a language barrier probably. But I do feel like they hide their tech among themselves and not they don't really share with internationals. They just share with each other so that their entire community can rise as a whole and be better than other communities.
Well,
I feel like that's kind of what it's about.
We don't have that problem here, and every tournament and training session is streamed, and we're about to go into a clip from Texas Showdown, and I'll let Donka set it up.
Yeah,
All right.
you were talking about play style and about the solidness of Zangief, and I think it's kind of interesting because I feel like the way you play Zangief is different from the way a lot of grapplers are stereotypically played. And
Oh,
instead
really?
of kind of going in for a giant mix-up at the end,
Hmm.
you play solidly and you work for big damage, like small reads throughout the game. Like right there, you backdashed a Yun dive kick and went for the SBD. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about like playing slow? I noticed you've gotten a lot more timeouts than pretty much any other player on the tour right now.
So I feel like Zangief is the type of character where you have to make certain reads with him. Like you can't just go, balls out right into the match, planning on killing this guy with no meter, large combos, mix-ups. He's if you want to play like that, your character should be evil you. When you're playing Zangief, you just have to be aware of the other opponent's options and you have to make them kill themselves. You can't really force your way in and do it yourself. So Zangief's main strength is defense, I would have to say. And that's one of the reasons why you'll see me like sometimes sit there for like 40 seconds and not press a button. It's because in some matchups I don't have to. Uh, if we have the same amount of health, sometimes I don't, sometimes I don't have to press anything. I just let them come to me, and it's just a matter of who cracks first in a lot of matchups. Like Zangief versus Rufus, that's a matchup where he doesn't have any moves to chip me out. I don't have any moves to safely chip him out. And so if we're in a neutral game and we have the exact same amount of health, we just have to sit there. And whoever makes the first mistake has to play upon the other person's defense. And it's just, at that point, it just gets really hard, especially like Yun, for instance. I feel like this character has a really good defensive game. It's just that Yun players, they want to just come at you, so hard. And against Shin Chang, this guy is crazy. Oh my God. Like when I'm playing against Shin Chang, I'm like, I'm not even going to come after you, all right? You're just going to come after me because you are a nut. Like even when his health is higher than mine, and I'm in the corner and he's still coming after me, as you can see right now. Which
Yeah,
is not,
yeah, for sure. The stand jab into the red focus combo into the kill.
yeah, he had no business coming after me at that point in time. He could have just sat back. There was 30 seconds on the clock. I would have had to come to him, but uh, some people just like coming in and you just have to sometimes you don't even have to play against the character. You can just play against the other player because you just know what they're going to do.
Yeah, and then
So,
one last character-specific question I kind of had about that matchup was I saw you do a couple things which I don't see very often, which were neutral jumping medium kick, and then yeah, let's just talk about neutral jumping medium kick for a little bit. What was your idea? You started the round with 3 of those in a row, and 2 of them actually hit. So what was the idea there?
okay, so you'll probably never ever see another Zangief do that, but I did excuse me, I did that for 2 reasons. One, I knew that was going to frustrate Shin Chang because he was just going to be like, what the hell is he? Why is he doing that move? What Zangief player does that? And so that's a part of my game. Sometimes I like to frustrate the opponent because it makes them play bad. Sometimes it makes them play. It makes them make really bad decisions. It gets on their nerves. That's all a part of the game. You have sometimes you have to do things like that. So also the second reason is. If I neutral jump medium kick and he jumps and dive kick, since the neutral jump medium kick is rising as I'm falling, it kind of anti-airs him if he tries to jump as I'm falling. So I knew it would hit him out of the air if he tried to do anything, and it baits his EXDP if he does it on wake up. It's a 3-frame safe jump.
Oh, all right. And then we started at SF2, we went to SF4, and now we're going to talk a little about SF5.
SF5.
So
okay.
right now, I know you've been playing Birdie. How do you feel about Birdie so far?
Man, this character makes Zangief look so bad. Like, he is so good. Like, I think if I played him in Street Fighter 5, I wouldn't even need a backup character. Now, I don't want them to nerf this character, all right? So I don't want to say too many good things about him, but he seems like he can keep up with the rest of the cast in almost every like aspect of the game, like neutrals, air game, fireballs, escaping mix-ups, and just overall, defense and offense. I feel like he can actually do what it takes. So
yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I'm really liking Birdie.
It's not just because he chucks energy drinks at his opponent.
No, I wish I could say it is, but no.
So then I guess so you do like Birdie so far, obviously. One thing I'm always interested in is he enough for you? Is there another character you really love? Do you want Zangief in the game? Is there someone that we haven't seen yet that you might be interested in? Or is Birdie like definitely the character you're gonna play?
You know what? Birdie has every answer you would want with a grappler. Not that you can think of. Every answer he has an anti-air grapple chain. He has a good normals. He has armored normals actually. He has his V trigger gives him more damage. But I still want Zangief in the game. Like Zangief's my character, you know? I can't see myself not playing Zangief. Like if someone saw me and like maining another character, they'd just be like, you know, who is this guy? You know? So I feel like I still want Zangief in the game actually. Yeah. Or Hagar. Like either Zangief or Hagar.
I would love that character.
Right. That yeah.
I'm sure you saw that somebody posted a picture from the Cammy's UK stage where there's like a picture of Hagar in the back, and
yeah,
everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's confirmed. He's in the game." So,
yeah.
I mean, it would be cool to see him, but you know, Street Fighter V is still a ways off. Mm-hmm. What is ahead of us is some more Capcom Pro Tour events, of course, leading up to the Capcom Cup. You are currently, according to the site, ranked 20th with 88 points. How do you feel about your progress so far? You haven't qualified just yet. How do you feel about your progress so far on the Capcom Pro Tour, and what are you looking forward to? What are you thinking? What's the game plan?
Well, I'm not at a comfortable amount of points right now. I would like to at least be in like 10th or definitely automatically qualified, but that's a little harder. I have a few tournaments coming up. I have the Dallas 10K. I have Summer Jam. I'll actually be trying to make it to the Tokyo Game Show, which should be extremely interesting. Playing all those players out there. Yeah, and I have those tournaments up, and we'll just see what happens. I'm pretty sure I can get some more points and qualify for Capcom Cup because I definitely want to go there and redeem myself for last year. So.
Yeah, and now that you're signed by Red Bull, is there a little more pressure? I mean, are they expecting you to be representing them on Capcom Cup at the Capcom Cup?
Right. Definitely. Yeah. If you're sponsored, they're automatically going to want you to do,
of course,
really good. And most of the time, all you can do is just do your best, give it 100%. You got to get in there and just do you. You can't feel pressured because that makes you play worse. So you have to just, be yourself. And Red Bull really, I think they really thrive at letting their athletes be themselves. That's one of the things that Red Bull really does very greatly. So I don't really feel too pressured. For myself, I just want to do really good,
Well, speaking of pressure or lack thereof, in anticipation of the show, I was doing my research and I was checking out your stream and all your past highlights. Nothing but Rising Thunder VODs on there right now, man. What is going on?
This game is so good, guys. You just don't understand. All right, look, I've never been able to play a grappler character who can just throw out a kick and get like 30% damage off of it. And it just feels so good. And the game is actually like extremely refreshing to play. Like it's kind of like Street Fighter 4, but the way it moves is like an old school game. Like it doesn't have very clunky hurt boxes. Like, cause for Street Fighter 4, since the game has like 3D models and they like kind of rotate all the time, it's really hard to land certain combos in certain situations consistently. And so with Rising Thunder, it has more solid hurt boxes, hits. Like a lot of the things you do make a lot more sense. And the game is just so good. Like it's such a challenge. Talos, he's a grapple character that I play. He's the lowest tier character in the game, even though there's only 6 characters in the game right now, but he's the lowest. But the tiers are kind of compressed in that game, except for Edge, who is the god tier character of that game right now. And it's just really like I love being challenged in video games. So for Talos to be that low and still be able to win, it's just a really nice feeling for me.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the game. I've personally been playing Shell in my training mode experience with the game, and I know you play Talos, and both of them are really.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I like it so far. I have my own issues with it, but
Yeah.
they're actually all related to the fact that instead of doing a motion in that game, you actually just press a button for a special move, and then the moves work on a cooldown. And what this means is that Shell has an instant one-button DP, and Talos has an instant one-frame command grab.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that, and do you think that the cooldown system works alongside that, or do you think things might need to be changed in the future?
Dude, the cooldown system adds such a weird meta to the game that I actually like. Because, you can do a DP with one button, but then as soon as you DP that person, they can do like they can kind of jump in at you, and you'll have to wait for cooldown, and then the other player has to guess your cooldown, because during the online play it's not visible. Like, you can't see the other players' cooldowns for their certain their moves. So that's part of the matchup. Like, you have to know their cooldowns. If you got them to whiff one of their uppercut moves, you hit them with a combo. And if they get up, the cooldown might not be available for their anti-air, so you might be able to like abuse jump ins, and so I think that's extremely interesting. I haven't even got around to like knowing a specific character's cooldown timing. They're still adding like patches to the game, so I don't want to get settled into knowing that kind of stuff, because they might change it around and I might have to relearn it again. So I think, man, that game is really interesting.
So do you think you're going to continue playing it even as Street Fighter V looms closer and maybe through the other betas? Or what do you see as the future for this game?
I feel like this game has the potential to be bigger than Street Fighter V, because I've been streaming this game like constantly, I've had people in my stream chat that play on keyboard, and they're asking me, what controller do you play with? Do you play with an arcade stick? Do you play with they don't even know that I play with this specific controller, the 6-button layout fight pad. Like, it has the potential to draw in a bigger casual audience than Street Fighter V. Even though Street Fighter V is a lot easier than Street Fighter 4, just by taking out FADC and clunky hurt boxes and no more 1 or 2 frame links. So I feel like Rising Thunder has the also it's free and it's PC based. So a lot more people in the world have PC rather than Xboxes and PlayStations. So I feel like Rising Thunder is that game.
It's interesting because the one thing I miss about Rising Thunder is that there's no local multiplayer, but you wouldn't have that mechanic of needing to have that internal clock in your head of the cooldowns. You would lose that mechanic or that meta because.
Right, that's the exact same thing I was thinking of. I feel like it might be better to have it online it might be better to play against someone online rather than playing them in versus mode. Also, another thing is that the reason why I feel like it can attract a larger audience is because it's so easy to play. Like, there's no execution barrier in that game. Like, literally anybody could just pick it up, press 3 buttons, and so it's more about the competitive part of it is more about the meta game instead of being able to execute certain combos, and that's a really good side to it, and I'm pretty sure the developers thought about that pretty hard.
Snake Eyes, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm glad you mentioned it a second ago, was the fight stick versus D-pad. We have a lot of people that watch this show that are new to it. Street Fighter V comes out, a bunch of news. Hey, what's all this FGC business, right? Yeah. So a lot of questions, or the question that a lot of new people to the fighting game scene have is, of course, do I need to get a fight stick? You're probably one of the most famous non-fight stick users, but can you talk to us about that decision-making process and your own personal opinion on it?
Okay, so for Street Fighter V, I feel like arcade stick might be the best, right? But it's not very far above being able to play on something like this. But in the end, I think it definitely boils down to personal preference, because I've never felt the need to switch to an arcade stick. Like, I've been playing with this. I've never I've never played on an arcade stick in Street Fighter 4 in tournament. I've always been playing on this pad, and it only, it's pretty cheap. It doesn't cost, $200. That's one of the things that a lot of people, casual players, like about this pad. It's pretty cheap. It's like 30 bucks or
That's
whatever.
the Mad Catz fight pad, right?
Yeah. It's the Mad Catz fight pad, and right now they're sold out though, which is they actually discontinued making them, so they're actually more expensive than 20 to 30 bucks right now. But yeah, it definitely. But there's guys who play on like this device called a hitbox. And
Yeah.
it's basically like it's basically like an arcade stick, but for up, down, left, right, it has buttons that you can press. So I would imagine someone who's coming from a keyboard, they would probably like to play on something like that. So yeah, it's all personal preference. And that, by the way, hitbox, I think that's the absolute best thing to play on.
Really? I
You can
mean,
get-
I got to ask, why do you think the hitbox is the best? Just
I
the
totally
precision?
agree, by the way.
Because so for an arcade stick, you have to actually move the arcade stick first to hit a certain direction. With hitbox, there's just buttons, so a lot of things can be instantaneous, like instant. You can do like standing 720s on it pretty easily, which is that's pretty crazy. I still can't do consistent standing 720s on this pad. It offers you the ability to be able to block left and right extremely fast, because say if you're playing, right, and someone crosses you up and you don't know which side they're going to land on, within hitbox you can like just kind of toggle which side you want to block on. But with this, you have to travel from the left side all the way to the right side, and that takes a lot more time than being able to do that with both fingers. So I'm pretty sure the hitbox is definitely the best thing to play on. It's just, for me, it's really weird. Like I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Well, we're super excited that you finally got picked up by Red Bull. We look forward to seeing a bunch of great matches. We've enjoyed every time you come down to Texas Showdown and Absolute Battle here in Texas.
Thanks,
we hope
man.
to see you again at those tournaments.
Oh, for sure. I'm coming to Dallas 10K, so expect to see me there.
Oh, that's right. That'll be with our buddies at the Epic Gaming Lounge.
Yep.
So that's cool. We'll definitely look forward to you there.
Sure.
One last question I wanted to ask you was, is there anybody that you're scared of going up against?
There's no one. You know what? Actually, I didn't want to play against Bon Chan at final round. Obviously, he's the best Sagat in the world, and I play Zangief, and that's like, yeah, water and fire pretty much. If I was to play Zangief against Bon Chan, it's like an automatic loss for me. Like, just going into that match, it's so hard, it's so ridiculous. But then I tried out Evil Ryu, and it was a lot easier than I thought it was. Like, I didn't go into that match expecting to win, but I definitely knew that I had a better chance playing with Evil Ryu than I did playing with Zangief. So he was one of my most he was just one of the players that I didn't want to play against the most. But I never feared him.
Exactly.
Snake Eyes doesn't fear anyone. So
All right, well, that's badass, man. And again, thank you so much for taking time to come and talk to us. We all hope one day to have a wall behind us that does nothing but cycle through images of our best moments. That's pretty cool. So again, thank you so much for stopping by, and good luck with the rest of the Capcom Pro Tour, man.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. It was a pleasure.
All right, dude, thanks.
No problem.
I'm used to being the most handsome guy in the show.
I mean, that's what I always say about you. Talked about the nerfs, right? The nerfs that were done specifically to Geef because of this of what Snake Eyes was doing. That's got to be a badge of honor on someone. Yes, it's annoying, but it's like, to be able to say they nerfed a character because of me, I think is kind of cool.
It's pretty awesome. I'm kind of jealous, honestly. I would complain about that until the sun went down, and then past that.
One of the things that I've been wanting to bring up on this show that I think is an interesting theory on why we enjoy watching fighting games. This is actually a theory about sports in general, but I think it translates perfectly to fighting games. And it's a phrase that you won't find, or a word you won't find in the dictionary, called eustress. Euphoria and stress. When you're watching a match, let's say you're rooting for Snake Eyes, and the odds are against him, and you're feeling that stress, and then he does a red focus combo into Ultra and wins the match, it's that euphoria and that release of the stress. And how many times does that happen over and over again in a set? And essentially, in your own brain, the chemical reaction is creating a bond with who you're watching and why you're watching, and you come back for that. And again, I think nobody exemplifies that better than Snake Eyez with his slow style of play. The stress builds up more, and the euphoria is that much more, pleasurable, if you will.
Oh, for sure. I remember at Evo, not this year, but the past year, I believe Snake Eyez was the last American left in top 8, and as soon as he lost, half the crowd left. Like, they literally walked out of the ballroom. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy where people are behind him and feel that stress that you were talking about with him as he plays.
Mm-hmm. And again, it helps build a bond with the guy that you're rooting for. Mm-hmm. But that was great. It was interesting. Well, again, before we move on, is the cooldown meta for Rising Thunder. You know, you often talk about what are the new mechanics in a game like Mortal Kombat, and there's a lot of meter management, interesting meter management for Rising Thunder. Now you have to think, he just did a DP, so I know it for at least the next 3 seconds. He can't do another DP. You see that in older esports, like, for instance, Quake. If you're playing Quake, Quake Live nowadays, you know that the last time that item was picked up was X amount of seconds ago, and in this amount of time it's going to be there again. So there's the mind game around that. To me, it's really fascinating to see how the metagame develops around games. How do you feel about a game like Rising Thunder having that as a mechanic?
So the cooldown part isn't particularly what bothers me. I do think it adds an interesting metagame. I do currently have an issue with one-frame DPs because one-button DPs, as I haven't really seen them done well in games yet. What a one-button DP lets you do is obviously do an invincible move much faster than you normally could in a fighting game. You have just one single button to press instead of a direction, and this lets you do things like DP directly from crouch, DP while walking forward, DP while walking backwards at extreme speed that's not otherwise possible. And in what I've played so far, the character Shell with a DP gives some of the mix-up characters a bit of trouble just because she can so instantly pull that out on reaction to moves. However, that's been available to charge characters for a long time. Guile's been able to flash kick just by pressing up and a button once he was charged. So it'll be interesting to see if they can balance the cooldowns around that being something that can work.
Or is it that everybody needs to adapt to the fact that DPs are so easy?
Yeah, I guess that's possibly true. I just think some things are reactable that would used to have only been reactable with block, and now they're reactable with DP. And since some of the characters are getting big combos out their DPs, I think it's a little bit much right now, personally.
Now, moving on, we haven't talked about the Capcom Pro Tour in a while. There was a ranking, because, there's you can get points events, but they're not premier events. There's qualifying events. There's all kinds of events. Of course, the ultimate premier event is EVO, and that's behind us now. But there was the Capcom Pro Tour Asia qualifier in Shanghai over the weekend, and you brought a clip, or several clips, and of course, we're going to go, spoiler alert, if you haven't caught up on the VODs, well, I guess cover your ears just for a little bit, because we're gonna play it now.
Yeah, so right now you have Shen playing Gen, going back to him. He's been playing a lot of different characters, and Gen's he's someone Evo with, versus Xiaohai's Evil Ryu. I'm just going to talk a little about Gen at first, which is Gen is a character who was often considered gimmicky for a while, especially before Shen brought him out. He's got all these goofy moves. He's got 2 stances. It's kind of hard to utilize all of it, and his damage is a little bit low since vanilla, so he's always been tough to play. And after Shen's win at Evo, he had a really tough time winning because people found out a lot of specific things about him, that he can't cross up as easily in the corner, etc. So seeing him go back to that was really interesting. And what you see him bring here is a totally different playstyle. One of Gen's most positive aspects is that he has really long cancelable normals, and he has really safe things to cancel them into. In the crane stance, which is this one.
That one.
He can cancel into the roll for some free chip damage. And in the Mantis stance, he can do the hands. Mm-hmm. So what you see him do in this matchup is a lot of really long block strings where he's not going to be scared of Evil Ryu's DP. Cancel into this. And option select pokes, cancel into that. So it lets him chip on a lot of damage and kind of bring the life lead in his favor and let the other guy come to him.
The hands are safe?
Yes, totally safe.
It looks like that.
And as is the roll. And so what these long block strings do is they kind of make Xiaohai a little complacent. You see him block the hands at the end of every block string. And then you see in this round, he'll end up mixing in the overhead towards the end of block strings. He'll do an EX hands and then do the overhead right here, which leads to a stun. And so by playing this kind of slow and steady game with his long-range cancels and with the option select pokes, he allows himself to mix in the long overhead, mix in the long low, and he's made Gen a lot more solid of a character in the process.
You know, I'm going to fast forward back to that spot at the very end that you were talking about with the overhead. I find it really cool. Could you basically call this a checkmate here? We're about to get to the end. He does the overhead into stun, and then on that wake up, that's pretty much checkmate, right? At that point.
Yeah, totally. At this point, so you can see the stun.
Whoops.
You see the combo as soon as it runs again, and the way he does the Oga, which is the name of the wall dive, is such that no matter which direction Evil Ryu DPs, whether it comes out or not, it's going to whiff or it's not going to come out, and the chip will be guaranteed, or the DP will whiff and be able to punish him. So at that point, there was, as far as I know, nothing that Xiaohai could have done to get out of that situation.
There it is.
Which just goes to show like Xian's dedication to the character and his ability to pull out those little checkmates when they become available.
Now we're gonna go to another match. So Zhang goes up one, then Xiaohai goes up one, and then Zhang goes to character select, and I was like, oh, who's he gonna bring out? And I felt dumb afterwards, thinking you don't always go to the character select to pick a new character. You go to change your ultra. Before we go into it, can you explain what Gen's Ultra 2 does? And to me, it's one of the riskiest ultras to use, but I'll let you set it up.
So Gen has 2 ultras, and within each of his ultras, he has 2 ultras.
That's
he has
right.
one for his crane and his mantis stance. You saw him pick Ultra 1 in the first match, and as far as I know, what Ultra 1 gives you is the maximum damage off of Super, and it's guaranteed damage. So if you do Super, you land the Ultra, that's one of the biggest damage combos in the game. But, however, as you saw, when he landed the Super, he didn't even have Ultra Meter yet, so it wasn't really coming in use to him. So after losing, he switches to Ultra 2. Mm-hmm. Ultra 2 gives him access to 2 new Ultras. In Crane Stance, which is the crazy one, he has the Air Dive Kick. And in Mantis Stance, he has the million hits that do, instead of doing normal damage, they do focus damage. And both of them are very, very good versus Fireball characters. And what we're going to see here is him utilize it for just that reason once he gets the Ultra Meter. Obviously.
It seems like he does it from so far away here when this Fireball comes out. It's about to happen, I think, coming up here.
Yeah, you'll see it pretty soon.
There it is.
So when Evil Ryu or Ken or any of the Fireball characters throw a Fireball, their hurt box is extended. And Gen's Ultra 2 is extremely fast, which means he can react kind of late and then hit it. His Ultra does a lot of damage, but it's the gray damage. It's like focus attacks.
So that's where I think if I was a Gen player, I would be scared to do that Ultra because you still need to follow up. You still need to mix up. You still need to read. You still need to be able to get something after it. What he does here is pretty impressive, and I mean, for lack of a better word, it looks like it took balls. So check this out, man. He gets the Ultra. You see all the gray damage. I think it's right here. And then where did he get this read to just chase him back? Here it comes.
I mean, the thing is, when people see that much of their gray health, I think they get a little nervous. I certainly would. You have all this health. Any additional hit is going to send you, 500 damage essentially. Whereas if you manage to run it out, you get all of it back, and it's like he didn't hit you at all. So he kind of uses this as an opportunity to walk forward scot-free because Xiaohai is not challenging him whatsoever. And then all he needs is an overhead, a low, or any poke in order to get the read on that damage. And you see him chase him down the back dash with a forward dash and get that low forward for all that damage.
It's interesting. Speaking of Red Bull, I was just watching. I read the article that they did on Zhan about it, and he talked about how after Evo, he wins Evo, and he went into a slump. He was having a hard time. He basically plateaued, to paraphrase it, and he was feeling down on himself. He really had to analyze it again. Then you see him perform like this, and it's kind of hard to think that even the best, I guess, can have their downtime. I
mean, he's an Evo champion. He's actually an SBO champion in King of Fighters. He was a good Marvel 3 player when it came out. I'm sure he did have a lot of trouble after that, but it doesn't change the fact that he's an amazing fighting game player. And I know that even though he might have been having trouble then, he hasn't won in a while, at least not Evo. So I think he really feels pressure on him to do better, and I think you're really seeing it come out for him now.
Let's change topics. We had not one but 2 character reveals in the last couple of days. First, of course, did you expect, of all the Street Fighter V character reveals that might be coming soon, that you would get Vega?
No, I really didn't, and I'm excited about it. Vega's actually one of my favorite characters. He's a charged character, which are kind of lacking in the games right now. And I definitely think people were either seeing another new character or maybe an Alex, someone who wasn't in Street Fighter 4. So I think they may have disappointed some people with this one, but I'm excited by it personally.
Now, again, I think other than Chun, I'm not sure if there are that many other charge characters in the game. What do you think? Do we need more charge characters? And what does in general, and we're talking meta here on fighting games, how does your playstyle change, or what kind of playstyle should you have in mind if you're using a charge character?
So charge characters inherently obviously have less options at their disposal, special move-wise most of the time, just because they have to gain the charge by, 50 frames, 60 frames, whatever it is, holding in that direction. The trade-offs for this are inherently that you get to do the move instantly by pressing forward or up in a direction as soon as you get the charge, and typically they make up for this by giving charge characters good normals and walk speeds. So I think it's nice. A lot of players' styles dictate them closer to playing charge characters. I think it's good to give a variety for people who play the game, and Vega was always one of the most different, least turtley charge characters. I think they really did a good job making him more interesting than your typical down backer.
I'm pretty sure Dudley will not be in the game because they gave Vega a rose toss. He's got a projectile, and if it makes contact, he immediately follows up with.
Oh,
the flurry of
wow. I
moves.
guess Vega's not charged anymore is what I'm reading.
Is that right?
Very interesting. Well, regardless, I do like his play style, and you see him get a lot of new stuff, as you said.
What's interesting, though, we were talking about Gen as well, is that he basically has two fighting styles. He has access to another set of moves or a slightly different set of moves when you sheathe your claw. You cannot pick up your claw anymore in this game if it gets knocked off of you. You can hide it if you're, presumably, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it looks when the game finally rolls out. But does this claw take visible damage? Or the idea being if you take damage, you will lose the claw and it's gone. But you can sheath it. So, how does that, again, I think it's exciting how much they're mixing up the characters here. But how do you feel about that? Yeah, basically Vega having two styles.
I don't know if they haven't really specified whether if he sheathes the claw, he can take it back out, but I assume he can. I know once you lose it, you never have it again. It's interesting. It gives Vega a character more options. I know they said a command grab without the claw, and with the claw, obviously, has longer range than his normals. These things are often not balanced that well. I think Gen actually has a pretty good job of it, whereas a character like Catgirl in Injustice almost always uses her, damage stance as opposed to her chip stance. So
certainly you meant Batgirl.
Yeah, Batgirl. Yeah, Batgirl. So, whether or not they can balance it is going to be up to them, but I think given what they've shown about the game so far, they'll definitely up to the task.
Well, speaking of character reveals, I haven't played a whole lot of Killer Instinct in my day. In fact, I think I've played it once. But they announced that of all characters, Rash of Battletoads fame, brother to, I think, Zit and Pimple, is going to be in Killer Instinct, and he's already playable today. I went online. I looked. Is anybody playing him yet? I saw at least the only stream of note that I found was Rico Suave. So here's a little bit of footage of him wailing on a Rash, which sounds funny to say. How do you feel? I know you're a big fan of getting different IPs into fighting games. How do you feel about seeing a character like this?
Well, this is cool. I played Battletoads when I was younger. I know Keats, and I'm glad that they kind of did this. I'm glad they kind of kept it under wraps and then immediately revealed it. It's really cool. I know a bunch of people who maybe didn't turn on Killer Instinct in a while turned it on to play as this character and to see him. And I think, as I said in an earlier show, having more IPs isn't really going to do anything negative. While video games are getting big and fighting games are getting bigger, there isn't enough competition right now for us to be kind of like holding back on each other. I think it helps out everyone when these IPs make it into different games.
Now, some of it had to do with the fact that Rare originally made the game Battletoads, and there was the announcement of a whole lot. There's a lot of Rare love on the Xbox console right now, and I suspect that had something to do with being tied into this. What I love seeing, it's like just that nostalgia trip when he does the dash with the ram horns, when he busts out the motorcycle. That seems like you could call it fan service or like nostalgia exploitation, but I enjoy it.
No, it's cool because he still looks like he belongs in Killer Instinct, and at the same time, he's got everything he had before. Mm-hmm. They didn't change him stylistically enough to forget about him, but he fits into the game, and it's kind of a tough balance that they really hit it off.
Well, that's really cool, and I'm really excited about to see. Again, it wasn't a super heavy tournament weekend, but there was a lot of cool news around it. everything from Red Bull announcing that they're signing Snake Eyes to character reveals. But I wanted to talk about something. At the end of the day, when I moved to Austin a couple of years ago, Arcade UFO became where I made my friends, FGC, my home away from home. But I'm originally from South Texas, from the border, from McAllen, Texas, and my FGC career began in McAllen, Texas, at the Anyone Land Center, hanging out with those guys, a bunch of great dudes, just like I'm sure many other people have their stories. Well, on Monday, one of our friends, Marquez, who was a staple of the Valley FGC, passed away from a heart attack. And I wanted to take the time. Here's a picture of him at Evo 2013. He's the guy on the right, and standing next. I mean, it breaks my heart. He was 33 years old. He was a good friend of ours. He always made us laugh. I have to pull back on some of the anecdotes of this guy because his stories were pretty outlandish. But it's one of those things where if it wasn't for fighting games, I wouldn't have gotten to know this guy. And I mean, we played so many matches online together. He was under Chopped and Screwed was his gamer tag.
True Texas native.
I might get in trouble for this, but I'm going to share one image that his friend, I reached out to Ham, who is, Julio Hernandez is a guy, we call him Ham. He runs weeklies down there in the Valley. He's kind of holding down the fort in a lot of ways. He was best friends with Marquez, and I asked him, send me some pictures. And he sent me this one that you're seeing now, but also he sent me a picture. And this is one of the most hilarious things, and it's terribly inappropriate, but somehow just perfect for like an FGC anecdote. Marquez liked to draw. And he was also had somewhat of a twisted sense of humor. Maybe some would call it perverted. And at a Laredo tournament, Laredo is a city in Texas, also on the border, he drew a picture of E. Honda doing a 100 hand slap that he wanted to show to Mike Ross, because Mike Ross and Gutex were there. And I'm going to put it up for a little bit. This image is actually an extremely... If he was here, I bet you he'd be cracking up. This is a picture of E. Honda doing something naughty to a lot of male members. So we're going to go ahead and switch off that shot. If you saw it, there it is. But I think it's a fitting... It's a fitting remembrance of the sense of humor of this guy had, and I know a lot of us will sorely miss him. He was a great guy, and at the end of the day, yes, we talk to big pro players, and we like talking about the big tournaments, but it's that core unit of friends that you make in the FTC that really make it worth it.
Yeah, it's really sad, and all I can say is I met him once at a tournament. He was a really funny guy, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family for sure. I mean, it's a terrible story, but he definitely made an impact on the FGC, and I know I saw everyone talking about it and sharing good anecdotes.
So again, Marquez, thank you for all the fights. Thank you for that greasy Hakan that you'd always, oh man, this horrible online Hakan getting away with all kinds of shit, gimmicks, pardon my French. I'm honored to have known the guy. This has been The Loadout. We're on Tuesdays, we talk fighting games. If you like it, follow. I'm Efren Salinas.
Mike Schiller.
Thank you for watching, guys.